It's 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. You've had a genuinely terrible day. You sit down on your couch, open Netflix, scroll for 20 minutes through hundreds of shows you've never seen, and then you put on The Office. Again, Season 2, Episode 1. You've seen it 14 times. You know every line. You know what Jim is about to do before he does it. And somehow, inexplicably, it's exactly what you needed. And here's the thing. You're not alone in this. Millions of people do this every single night. And they feel weirdly guilty about it. They skip the new. They ignore the unwatched. And they return again and again to the same stories, the same characters, the same fictional worlds, all while feeling like they should probably be doing something more productive with their time, something more impressive, something more new. What if that instinct is wrong? What if that Tuesday night rewatch isn't avoidance? It's actually one of the most psychologically intelligent things you can do for yourself. What if it's a form of self-regulation so specific that therapists have a name for it? Here's what's fascinating. The reason we rewatch the same shows over and over isn't really about the shows at all. It's about certainty. It's about the nervous system. It's about a very specific kind of emotional hunger that the modern world has made genuinely difficult to satisfy. Let me show you what I mean. Your brain is a prediction machine. Everything it does, everything is built around anticipating what's coming next. And when something unexpected happens, it burns real energy recalibrating, updating, processing the surprise. Picture this. You've been scrolling news for an hour. Anxiety, a shocking headline, more anxiety, someone's hot take, another disaster. Your nervous system has been scanning for threat the entire time, building and rebuilding predictions, never settling. Then you press play on your favorite show, and something physical happens. Something in your chest loosens. That isn't a metaphor. That's your nervous system literally stepping out of threat scanning mode because, for the first time in hours, it already knows what's coming. This is the thing you're actually craving on a Tuesday night. Not The Office specifically. Silence in a part of your brain that hasn't been quiet all day. Researchers have a name for the state of being fully absorbed in a story. They call it narrative transportation. But what they found when they looked at rewatching specifically is more subtle. When you watch something new, part of your brain stays slightly outside the experience, forecasting, tracking, registering every twist. When you rewatch, that forecasting layer goes quiet. And that quieting is the whole point. That's what you're really after. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the effect doesn't stop there. Have you ever noticed that certain fictional characters feel like actual friends? Not in a confused way. You know they're not real. But your brain forms a real emotional bond with them anyway. A warmth. A sense that they're yours somehow. Scientists even have a term for this. They call it a parasocial relationship. This sounds pathetic when you say it out loud. It isn't. For a long time, researchers treated these bonds as sad little substitutes for real connection. A consolation prize for the lonely. But the science has shifted dramatically. These relationships meet genuine human needs. They offer connection without the vulnerability of real relationships. Warmth without the cognitive load of managing another person's emotions. And crucially, they're safe in a way real relationships can never be. I have a friend who says rewatching her favorite show feels like calling an old friend. She knows exactly what he'll say. That's the whole reason she calls. Your favorite characters cannot betray you. They cannot cancel plans. They cannot say something that changes how you see them. When you return to those worlds, Whether it's your go-to sitcom, your rainy day fantasy series, that one show where everyone loves each other no matter what happens, you are, in a very real neurological sense, visiting people you trust completely. People whose behavior you know, whose love for each other you've already watched play out. The familiarity isn't boring. It's the entire point. It's what makes it feel like home. Notice something about those shows. They're almost never thrillers, almost never horror, almost never shows with deeply ambiguous endings or difficult moral questions left hanging. They're shows with warmth at their center. Shows where friendship survives, where love persists, where even when terrible things happen, the characters move through them together. And once you understand what you're actually looking for, not entertainment, but emotional regulation, this makes perfect sense. You're not choosing a show. You're choosing a feeling. And you're choosing it knowing it will be there when you arrive. There's another layer here that I think gets missed almost entirely, and it has to do with who you are. Imagine a scene you loved in your 20s. A character says one line, maybe about her mother, maybe about a relationship, maybe just about being tired of everything. And you remember laughing, or shrugging, or barely noticing it at all. Now imagine rewatching that same scene 10 years later. The line stops you cold. Nothing about the scene has changed. The actress delivered it the exact same way. The music was the same. But you were different. You'd lived things now. You'd had losses. The line that once sounded like a joke suddenly sounds like something you yourself had said, out loud at 3 a.m, to nobody. That moment of being stopped by something you'd seen many times before, is doing real psychological work. Psychologists call it narrative identity work. You're using a fixed story to measure how you've changed. The show stays the same. You don't. And the contrast between the two shows you yourself more clearly than any journal entry ever could. This is why people return to favorite shows at transition points. After a breakup, after a loss, at the end of a year, on the anniversary of something. They come back to a known story not just for comfort, but for orientation. The story is stable. They aren't. And that contrast helps them locate themselves. Ask anyone who rewatched their favorite show in the weeks after something broke apart in their life. They'll tell you it did something that nothing else could. It held them in place long enough to feel where they were. Here's the weird part, though. You still feel guilty about it? That I should be watching something new, feeling. That sense that rewatching is somehow lesser, somehow a form of wasted time. But ask yourself, where did that guilt actually come from? Because you didn't invent it. Somebody decided, somewhere along the way, that new was automatically better than known. And you absorbed it, along with all the notifications and the algorithms, without ever really questioning it. Here's the truth. Novelty is stimulating, but stimulation is not the same as nourishment. And there is a specific kind of emotional nourishment that only comes from the familiar, from the known, from the place where your nervous system doesn't have to work so hard. A new show might excite you, but an old show can restore you. And restoration, genuine, quiet, nervous system level restoration, is not a lesser need. It's one of the deepest ones you have. Think about what else you do for comfort. You eat the foods from your childhood when you're homesick. You call the same people when things get hard. You reread the book that saved you once. The pull toward the familiar isn't a failure of imagination. It's an ancient, deeply human strategy for surviving a world that keeps asking something new of you every single day without ever letting up. Comfort rewatching is just that strategy applied to stories, and the fact that you do it with a slight flush of embarrassment, like it's a secret weakness, says more about the culture you're swimming in than it does about you. Because here's what's actually happening in those Tuesday night moments. You are not wasting time. You are not avoiding growth. You are doing something your brain and your body are actively asking for. You are giving your prediction machine a rest. You are sitting with people you trust. You are checking in with a version of a story to see how you've changed in relation to it. You are nourishing something real. And yeah, you know every line. You know what Jim is about to do. You know how it ends. That's exactly the point. That's always been the point. The world gives you enough surprises. Some things are allowed to stay. So tell me, what's the show you come back to? The one that holds you when the day has been too much? I'd really like to know the answer, because I think the answer is more beautiful than most people realize.